Hi, it's Marissa back in Baltimore, and today I'm actually touring Under Armour's distillery today called Sagamore Spirit Distillery, and I'm going to let you see some of the view. It's in Port Covington, so there's water right there, and there's this really huge ship back behind me too. And then the distillery is right behind me, and that's where we're going to tour. And after the tour, we're going to sit down and hear about the whole development of the Under Armour headquarters, which is back here behind me. I don't know if we're going to tour it, but I'll definitely have some footage of that if we do, but definitely of the distillery, and we get to taste some of the spirit that he has he's making. So I'm really excited for it. Been waiting for this trip for about 3 months now. Super excited to be here, and can't wait to show you guys more footage. Talk to you later.
We're going to make our way towards our water tower, but while we're doing that, I am going to tell you a little bit about the history of Maryland, so if you'll follow me this way. What a lot of people actually do not know about Maryland is that we played a crucial role in the history of rye whiskey prior to Prohibition. So we do have an interactive Maryland map that's on the wall in our visitor center. It will show you the 44 distilleries that were in the state of Maryland. 21 of them were actually in the downtown Baltimore area alone. So in 1939, we were of the leading supplier of rye whiskey. We actually held 110 million gallons right here in this state. Also with that, when we entered World War II in 1941, every one of those distilleries actually converted into ethanol plants to help support the war effort. So if you guys want to wrap around our limestone rock that we have here. So as all of those distilleries actually converted into ethanol plants, they helped supply half the government's 550 million gallon quota of ethanol. However, after the war was over, we never converted back into producing rye whiskey, and that really brings us to where we are today. So we're here to put Maryland back on the map. Have any of you guys actually been to Sagamore Farm before or heard of it by chance? Okay. So for those of us who don't know, it's actually where the entire vision for Sagamore Spirit all began. It's 22 miles away from here up in northern Baltimore County, and it is a 530-acre thoroughbred horse racing farm. It's actually once owned by the Vanderbilts back in the 30s, really storied and historic place for the state of Maryland. However, it did fall into disrepair in 1986 when it was sold. Those who bought it at the time actually wanted to turn it into housing developments, but they couldn't due to the small roads on the farm. So fast forward to 2007, and that's kind of when the Plank family purchased the farm, really inspired by the winning history that the farm had, and with that, they wanted to bring horse racing back here to Baltimore. Alright, so you guys are in the bottom floor of our distillation building, and behind you are 9 of the fermentation tanks that we use here. 6,500 gallons apiece, so pretty massive in size. Once you get upstairs, you'll be able to look inside them, see just how deep they are. But in order to do so, we do need to have a recipe, and that's otherwise known as our mash bill. Our mash bill is made up of malted barley, corn, and of course, rye. In order to legally be a straight American rye whiskey, it has to have at least 51% rye in it. So that's what's going to make it a little bit spicier in taste profile. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove will be some flavors that you get right away. Have you guys all had bourbon before? Okay. In order to legally be a bourbon, that has to be at least 51% corn. So that's what's going to make it a little bit sweeter in taste profile, also a little more syrupy in consistency. And we get our grains delivered here in this full kernel form that you see up here. They get milled down into the flour-like consistency that you guys can see down here. And the reason we're doing that is just to get everything into the same consistency. Hello! And help release all of the starches in the grains. What we're going to do with these is we're actually going to cook them upstairs in our mash cooker, mixing them with water, 330 degrees for about 3 hours. And during that time, all of the starches in the grains are actually going to convert into sugar. Sugar is what we need to start our fermentation process of turning that sugar into alcohol. So that's kind of the basics of our recipe and chin. And we also are home to the nation's only 40-foot mirror-finished copper column still. So you'll be able to see it in our next room. It's beautiful. It took over 1,100 hours to handcraft for us by Ben Dome. So we are very proud of all the machinery that we do have in this building here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off by taking the distiller's beer that's in that tank there and gradually pumping it into the top of our column still. So once that's happening, it is falling to the bottom. However, we are going to take hot bottom up. So at one point those two are going to meet, and when that happens, it is going to cause for all of the alcohol to vaporize to the top and allow everything else to start falling to the bottom. So excess greens, excess water, all of that starts falling to the bottom, and it creates an oatmeal-like paste. We actually take that out, and it's called stillage. We then donate that to local farms for pig and cattle feed. It's actually really great for the animals. It's less than 1% alcohol, so no drunk pigs running around anywhere. However, as alcohol vaporizes up, it makes its way over into our first condenser. And in that condenser, it's going to work kind of just like a hot shower would. When you have hot steam in the air, hits the sides of the walls and starts dripping down. It's kind of what our condenser is going to do, turning all of that vapor into a liquid. That liquid hits our first spirit safe, and we call that low wine. Low wine is 125 proof. So, distiller's beer, 8% alcohol, is actually 16 proof. One run through the still turns it into 125. It then makes its way down to our first copper doubler. In our doubler, we're going to reheat all of the alcohol vapors, retain some excess water, and it's going to hit quality control as it heads up into our second condenser. In that condenser, it again is going to take all of that vapor and turn it back into a liquid. So this is the second step of triple distillation. It then makes its way into our second spirit safe, and that's what we call high wine. High wine is 130 proof. We are raising the proof each time with the distillation process. It then makes its way down into our last copper doubler. Again, we're reheating all of the alcohol vapors as they make their way back into our last condenser. This condenser is not only going to turn that vapor back into a liquid, it is also going to cool down that liquid because we no longer need to reheat it throughout this process. That cooled down liquid makes its way into our third spirit safe, and we call that higher wine. Higher wine is now 135 proof.